Autumn is well and truly over now, but I wasn't quite ready to let go of those beautiful colours. So today I'm turning a quiet late autumn walk into a watercolour landscape. I actually painted this piece about just over a week ago, while everything was still looking pretty beautifully golden. So in this video I'll take you through my whole process. The sketchbook studies, the paper preparation, the colours I chose, and of course the final painting. This is the view from RHS Wisley Gardens, not far from where I live. I wanted to work out the composition and the colours in my sketchbook first. These little studies don't take long, but they're incredibly helpful. They let me test the values, check the overall balance, and see what's actually important in a scene. Sometimes a quick sketch tells me more than just staring at the reference photo for half an hour. This is a speed-up version of my value sketch. As you can see, I kept it very loose. Just a waterproof pen and then a quick wash of Payne's grey to place the light and shadow. Next, I wanted to experiment with some colours, so I made another sketch. This time with watercolours and my Neocolor II pastels. I like using mixed media in my sketchbook because it's fast and it helps me see possibilities I wouldn't try on a final paper. Here I played with changing some of the leaf colours and seeing what would happen if the trees were slightly warmer or cooler. You may have noticed that the pastel adds texture immediately, which is perfect when I'm trying to imagine how a final painting might look. After these two little studies, I felt much more confident about the final painting. It's always so tempting to jump straight into a big piece, but honestly, this sketchbook prep saves me so much stress. So here I'm preparing the cotton paper. I soaked it in a clean water for about 3 to 5 minutes and then I let the excess drip off and I placed it on my drawing board. You can see I marked the margins beforehand because I wanted to finish the painting to be just slightly larger than A4, just enough to frame easily later. I'm using gummed tape here to stretch the paper. Once it dries, it becomes beautifully tight and flat. This step makes a huge difference if you're using a lot of water, especially on lighter papers like this one is only 300 GSM. Basically, it stops the paper from buckling and it gives you a really smooth surface to work on. Stretching paper isn't essential for everyone, but I actually enjoy this ritual and it forces me to slow down and commit to the piece. So for this painting, I am using my new Jackson's Artist Watercolour tubes. I have lemon yellow, quinacridone rose, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber, ultramarine and Payne's grey. I also used a little bit of Winsor Newton lake blue and a touch of vermilion. Before I started painting, I lifted the top of my drawing board by resting it on a roll of tape. It's a simple trick that helps the first washes to flow more naturally towards the bottom of the paper. I began painting the sky. I wet the top of the paper with clean water and then added a soft wash of blue lake, followed by darker mix of ultramarine, yellow ochre and a hint of quinacridone rose. To lift out the lighter cloud shapes, I used a clean bit of paper towel and gently dabbed in few places. I wanted the sky to stay quite soft and luminous. Once the sky was done, I moved on to the brightest and most saturated parts, starting with that yellow tree in the middle. Everything here is wet in wet, so the colors spread beautifully and create those lovely soft edges. This is exactly why I love painting on cotton paper. I mixed my greens. one bright and one more muted, and I started adding the trees at the back. I try to vary my greens in saturation and tone. Some trees look lighter and some are in the shadows. Glancing at my value study helped me to keep everything in check. As you can see, I am roughly following the shapes and colors from my reference photo, but I'm also trying to stay loose and expressive. Once I filled the top part of my painting with colorful trees, I used clean water again to wet the area for the foreground. I painted the grass and some soft foliage by the pond. You can see how I changed the colors from burnt sienna to yellow ochre and burnt umber, trying to create some variety and interest to this part of the painting. But I'm still trying to keep everything soft without any hard edges. I mixed quinacridone rose with a touch of dark green I already had on my palette to paint the small but very bright burgundy maple tree visible in the foreground. I dried everything thoroughly with my hairdryer. I realized I missed painting the area by the pond on the right hand side, so I re-wetted the paper and painted some of the foliage there, and I finally painted the path with a diluted Payne's grey. I also added some splatters to give the trees more texture. I tested a few brushes, but my medium round brush worked best, just loading the tip with a thicker pigment and flicking it with my finger. It was time to add few details. I started to work wet in dry here to add few branches to the trees in the middle ground. I didn't quite like the hard edges I created here, so I used my spray bottle with clean water so the colors can blend a little. I didn't want this part to compete with the bridge, which I painted next. This is the part of the painting to which the audience is drawn by following the path, so I slowed down here and I used my smallest brush. As I already had my brown mix on the palette, I went ahead with adding few loose tree branches to the taller trees in the background. My main tip for this part is to add the branches quite sparingly. Less is definitely more, and it's best to keep it quite random with your mark making. I also added few details to the pink tree in the foreground. Because I added a lot of dark values to the bottom of these trees, the top suddenly looked very light and dull. I decided to glaze the large tree in the front with another layer of quinacridone rose and burnt sienna. I also decided to paint few grass strands in the foreground, and I added a couple walking down the path. I used Dr. Martens bleed-proof white for this. And this is the moment when I made a big mistake by painting another layer of yellow ochre on the top of my beautiful yellow tree. Yellow ochre is an opaque pigment and it's not suitable for glazing. I try to soften the edges by spraying clean water afterwards, but it's never the same as the initial wet wash. Once everything was completely dry, I trimmed off brown gummed tape to reveal the finished painting. I am using my very sharp and dangerous paper trimmer, and although it looks like I'm about to cut off my fingers here, I am always extremely careful when I handle it. So this is the final A4 painting, ready to be matted and framed. I hope you enjoyed watching this process video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm always happy to help. Thank you so much for spending this cozy painting session with me, and until next time, Happy painting!